Okay.
So, hi, we're here with Mr. Jon Baeckstrom. He works with the WWE. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
We're doing good. So, we just wanted to start by asking you to kind of introduce yourself and kind of explain to the people watching what your profession is.
Sure. So I grew up in Cherry Hill. I went to Cherry Hill East. I was on the editorial board at East Side, worked in the sports section. Um, but right now, my job is I'm currently the lead writer for Monday Night Raw, which is one of the two flagship shows we call it sports entertainment. I'll use this term, although they kind of frown upon it sometimes, professional wrestling, as a lot of people may know it. And so for WWE. And so I've been with the company for about 10 years on the writing staff. And so I work as part of the creative department, generating the storylines and the television shows that kind of drive the company.
Okay. So the next thing we say, you mentioned that you attended Cherry Hill East. What was it like growing up in the area, attending East and being on the East Side board?
Oh, it was great. I mean, my family still lives there. My parents have a house not far from Cherry Hill East. My mom works in the school district. So no, Cherry Hill's great. And I can't remember exactly how I got hooked up with Eastside. I think it may have been I think there was a website. I don't know if it still exists. It was like Rate My Teacher, and it was like how you could kind of get the inside scoop on it. And Mr. Gagliardi at the time, I think he had like the highest rating in the country. I think. So I was like, hey, that's the kind of thing word spreads like, hey, what are the good classes? And so that was kind of how I got steered in the direction. And I remember doing a few interviews. What? You still
All the
on?
ratings of that site were deleted like 8 years ago. So there's no record of what you just said. I mean, now we have your vocal history up, but you can't even see it online anymore.
Oh, that's an outrage.
Yeah, agreed.
Uh, but yeah, that was how it kind of first, again, just one of the things you hear about. And I always like to write, and there's not a ton of, clubs or anything that kind of give you a chance to do that. So I remember doing a couple interviews and writing a couple of articles, and then taking journalism, it was my senior year. And it's funny, I don't remember a ton of high school, and I still remember a lot of East Side and a lot of journalism class. I even remember my final project was I've got it saved. My parents have it. It was like a few broadsheets, like make your own little newspaper. And I made mine on actually WWE at the time. So it's kind of a cool little novelty to have. Like I had no idea back then I'd end up working there. And yeah, it was just, the freedom, I think, is what I remember was most interesting. I was an editor. Actually, I wrote for the sports section, but I was an editor for the entertainment section, and just kind of getting the freedom, like, hey, it's your newspaper. What do you want to write about? So I remember, writing about movies that were coming out, and the movie theaters in the area. And it was just, a nice mix of learning, but like total freedom to kind of pursue what you were interested in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said, you were obviously interested in wrestling when you were a kid. Who was, some of your favorite wrestlers growing up, some of your favorite matches that you got to, see?
Sure. So my first favorite was I don't know if Kane. I don't know if the name will
Mhm.
mean the
Yeah.
big wrestler. And so I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling in my house because I was born in 1990. So if you do the math, when I would have been at the age where it was appealing to me was at the start of the Attitude Era.
Right, right.
Yeah, which was a huge boom period in the industry, but it was also a period where the content got very mature. So my parents, I think, got one look at that and said, "No way in heck, are you watching that?" So I would have to watch it at my friends' houses. And if my parents see this interview, they'll learn a lot of this stuff for the first time. But like kids on my soccer team were allowed to watch it, or they had the video games. So I'd go over their places and we'd play the video game, or we'd watch wrestling. So it was Kane, and then as I started to see more, it was The Rock, of course, and Chris Jericho, Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was, kind of the guys of that era. And then as I got a little older, when I got into my teens, I was able to watch it at home and not have to sneak it. And, I think at that point it was, Batista, Edge, those kind of guys in the mid 2000s. And my favorite match was WrestleMania 17, the main event, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was the first pay-per-view I ever saw. I had a friend who had it on VHS, which is going to show how old I am. But he gave me the copies and I watched them in private.
Nice, nice. So now getting into kind of what you do now, how did you kind of get started and find your way into the company? And as you've kind of worked your way through, what lessons have you taken away from that?
Sure. So I went to school. I didn't really have any plans. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I kind of stumbled into being a film and TV major because I was just like, well, I like this. So surely there's a career here. And again, I liked writing. So I ended up getting in at WWE about a year after graduating college. I went out to LA for a year and I was trying to get a job as a writer's assistant, which is like the entry level position if you're aspiring to be a writer in the entertainment industry. But they're really competitive. So I was doing a mix of internships and work at like a very low level in the industry, learning how to be an assistant, learning how to work with scripts, and getting some television production experience. Didn't really like LA. I'm an East Coast guy. So when I came back to the East Coast, it was just really lucky timing that the job I was looking to get, a writer's assistant, WWE just happened to be hiring 4 writer's assistants at the time. And so I started there. That was summer 2013. And it was really one of those things, there's so much work that needs to be done at WWE. The job's so kind of demanding that just by showing up every day and kind of doing my job, it was all about trust is the way they explained it to me. So at first, if they could trust me to make coffee the right way and print out, the right documents and hand them out to the right people, then they could start trusting me to sit in on creative meetings and take notes as I was listening to them put the shows together and discuss creative. And then as I started to get to do that and did it well, it became, okay, now you can start shadowing us and following us as we're working with the performers and writing the parts of the show. And then it just kind of built from there. So that's kind of the number one thing I think I learned is that like everything takes time. And now having kind of been on the other side of it and I'm trying to help bring new people in, I appreciate how much it is just baby steps of like, just show up, do your best every day, and then the growth happens very slowly. And then all of a sudden it'll seem, there's that expression of like, you work, I'm butchering it now, but you work for so long and suddenly you're an overnight success. It's kind of like that. If you show up and build that trust, all of a sudden they trust you and then they start throwing every bit of work they can at you. And that's kind of been my journey at WWE.
Nice, nice. So next question was, what is the process that kind of goes into writing WWE TV weekly?
Sure. So it's a 7-day a week, 365-day type of deal. We don't have an off season. It's 52 weeks a year. So every day we're kind of doing something. So for Raw and SmackDown functions, we have separate writing teams. One team that's dedicated to SmackDown, one that's dedicated to Raw. We're pretty much always in a state of trying to figure out what we want to pitch for the show, right? So that's me and my co-lead writer, Ryan Ward, and our team. We'll be working on ideas for the show. We'll eventually have our creative meeting with the head of creative is Triple H, Paul Levesque. So ultimately, he's in charge of everything. And so at a certain point in the week, we'll get a chance to meet with him maybe once or twice. And that's where we're discussing everything from big picture stuff, WrestleMania, months-long storylines, those types of things, along with, the day-to-day, what are we doing on this show, specifics. And then once we sort of have a plan set of what we're doing, we begin the writing process, which again is a big collaborative effort to turn out a 3-hour TV show each week. And then it gets to the day of TV, which for us is Mondays, where we will travel to the arena in whatever city we're in that week. So this upcoming week will be in Cleveland. So be at the, I forget what it's called now, but it's where the Cavaliers play. And we'll work on the show with Paul, with the production team, with the talent, and kind of put the show on live that night. So it's very heavily collaborative. Everybody from the company is involved, from the cameramen, the director, to the talent, especially to the writers. We're kind of one part of the whole overall machinery.
Yeah, that's awesome. That it's cool that you get to kind of work with so many different, um,
I had a question off of that. So since you said it's like every day of the year, so do you have like any breaks during the year, or are you working like every single day? And also, what are your like hours every single day that you work?
So I mean, it's luckily not every single day. Actually,
Yeah.
in terms of, you know, like we're not working Christmas, which is nice. But
Yeah.
short of that, there's usually something that'll come up, even if it's just a few text messages or an email or something that needs to get addressed. WWE really is a machine that never stops turning. And the hours kind of are dictated by the job. So, you know, some weeks everything's going great. We're in the office a couple of days a week, working from home a couple of days a week, and then we're on the road. And some weeks, you know, all sorts of things can happen. We've got maybe an additional show we're producing, like we have our pay-per-views, which we'll do, you know, once a month. So that's extra, you know, work. But hours, I mean, I've had weeks where it's like, wow, I'm getting paid to do this. And I've had weeks where the hours have been pretty insane. You know, I've done some 20+ hour days. But you know, it's part of the job. So you kind of have to roll with the punches. Because the show, it's different every week.
Cool.
I know you'd mentioned that, you know, it's really cool that you get to work with so many different people. Who are some people that you've gotten to work with, whether they're wrestlers, staff, like different celebrities that might have made appearance that have been really special to you that you've gotten to work with them?
Sure. Well, that's a good question. Sure, special to me. I'll tell you what, the person that kind of had the most impact on me was when I got to meet John Cena. Because when I grew up, he wasn't one of my favorites, you know, in terms of the character. And, you know, it was like, oh, why is I was one of those people like in my teens where I was like, why is this guy always champion? And then I got to meet him, and it was that instant, like, oh, that's why he's so successful. You know, he's an extremely funny person. I don't know how many of his movies or anything you've seen, but I mean, he's off the cuff, an extremely entertaining person. And I haven't really talked with him all that much. He's just, I've been in the same room when he's working, but seeing his work ethic between what he's doing for WWE, the responsibility he might have on the show that night, to the incredible amount of charity work, and then the other businesses or the other facets of the company's business that he's working on, to then obviously his acting career, it was eye-opening for me as a lesson of like, oh, it's not just like success is not just like handed down. Like there's a reason he's become one of the most prominent actors in the world, is because that dude has a work ethic that is, it's hard to describe and do justice to it. So that's been kind of one of the coolest things, because it's like inspiring watching him work, and hearing the stories about him. And that's something that's definitely impacted me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know John Cena is a lot of people's favorite wrestler just from talking with them. So obviously, you know, the matches. What are some of the matches that you've gotten to be a part of, or just seen as you've been a part of the company, that have just been really special?
Sure. So yeah, and I don't get involved in matches. I'm a writer, as I like to remind the people at work, is like, I'm just a nerd with a keyboard. Or you know, I'm just typing stuff. So I wouldn't, you know, as far as the matches that I've gotten to see, you know, if I can dig back to kind of when I first started, WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans had two kind of the most memorable matches in very short succession. You had the end of, and by the way, if I'm using anything terminology you guys want me to explain, I'm happy to go back. But The Undertaker, one of our most iconic characters, and he'd been undefeated at WrestleMania. You know, for I think it was like 25 years, but it was a 21-0, and you know, he lost his first match, and that was something people had grown up their entire lives never having seen the Undertaker lose at WrestleMania. They thought it would never happen. And walking out into the Superdome and seeing, you know, 70, 80,000 people, and you could hear a pin drop. It was it was a shocking moment. I've never felt anything like that. And then on the other side, later that night, you had Daniel Bryan win in the main event of WrestleMania. And that is maybe the most excited I've ever seen a crowd ever. You know, and just so seeing the swing of emotions from people literally in tears, feeling like you know, and hey, it's storytelling, it's drama, like seeing almost like a part of their childhood had been taken from them to then being as excited as they've ever been within the span of like an hour was pretty cool and helped kind of set the tone for like, okay, this is what this place, you know, is all about for me.
Yeah, I remember seeing the you know, the picture of Paul Heyman with the face after Brock beat the Undertaker. So obviously WrestleMania is coming to Philadelphia, somewhere kind of local to where you grew up. What does it mean to have an event such as WrestleMania come so close back to where you grew up?
I'll be honest, I'm really excited. Like I get pretty jaded, pretty cynical. I've done, you know, 500 or 600 episodes of Raw, another few hundred SmackDowns, 150 pay-per-views, maybe 200 at this point. So I've seen a lot. But for me, kind of being able to see WrestleMania take place, you know, at the Link, then to do, you know, we'll do Raw the next night at Wells Fargo, you know, kind of where my family's, you know, all from that area. It's something that means a lot to me personally. And, you know, I bust my ass every year. Sorry for cursing, but to try and make the shows the best we can, but definitely feeling a lot of pressure. This one can't be a dud because I'm going to have a lot of family members I'm going to have to explain to myself to if we don't do a good job when we're in Philly. So I think it's going to be cool.
Definitely. So I just have one more. I don't know if Julia has any more. What goes into, you know, planning and writing for an event so big such as WrestleMania?
Sure. It's a huge operation. There's a whole production team, and I can't do justice to how talented these people are. The set design and the way the show will travel, like there's a lot that goes into it. Everything from pyro to the sound system, the seating design and ticket sales, the advertising. It's a whole multi-year operation, really, in terms of setting up these shows. They're always working ahead to the next WrestleMania and the one after that. So it's a huge event. It's something that we are focused on all year in the back of our mind. We're always thinking about WrestleMania from a creative standpoint. And then we're entering the time of year where it's going to become a bit all-consuming. It's kind of what I was alluding to earlier about the hours, right? We get closer to WrestleMania, you work as long as you got to work to make sure that show goes off without a hitch. Because those are the shows we get remembered by.
Okay, and then I had two questions. So, has female views over time changed?
So that's actually a good question. I'm not 100% sure where the demographics stand. It's been a while since I got an analytics breakdown of that, because we do get analytics that help us break down how we're doing in terms of viewership. But one of the things that's been really cool, and it's been well documented and better explained than I can probably do justice to, but there's been this change in the company that I've been able to witness, which we refer to as like the women's revolution, the women's evolution, where the female performers, you know, were a sort of small part of the show back in the day, and they were presented differently. And for a variety of reasons, one of the big ones being just the quality of the performers who've come in. People, and again, names like Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch, who've come in, and how talented they are as, you know, character performers, but also the in-ring athleticism has changed everything. So, you know, I've seen the first women's match at main event of Raw was back in 2004. But I've had the privilege of being here to witness them main event the first pay-per-views and even the first WrestleMania in 2019. Becky Lynch main event of WrestleMania with Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. So it's been a really cool improvement in the overall product, and you know, that I've again had a chance to witness and observe up close, thanks to some really, really talented people who've worked really hard at it for a long time.
Okay, that's great. And then my last question is just like, if you could summarize, what would you say is like your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of the job is it's the moments where we literally get to look at each other and go, I get paid for this. And I'm going to reference something kind of obscure, but it's on TV. It's on YouTube. You can dig it up and find it. But we did a segment on the show maybe 6 years ago, roughly, where it involved out in the ring, in the arena, three of our characters getting into literally a refrigerator box that we had decorated as a time machine, and we presented it like they had gone into the past and switched the cameras over to black and white. And it was one of the dumbest, funniest things I've ever seen, just for me. So like those little moments where I know, you know, however long I end up getting, you know, the privilege of working at WWE, those are the moments I think I'm going to carry with me, you know, 20, 30 years from now and look back and be like, wow, I got to show up at work one day and tell grown men that no, you guys are going to get into the time machine refrigerator box. It's going to be great. And so those are kind of the fun moments. There's the big ones, WrestleMania, but it's also a lot of those little moments of flavor that kind of make the job really special.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. I don't know if there's anything else that you kind of want to say while, you know, we're recording, just for anybody watching.
Oh no, I was flattered you guys reached out to ask me. I'm glad to see everything's going well at Eastside, even with the unfortunate taking down of the website. That was a testament to what a special teacher Mr. Gagliardi. He really is. He's one of the. I don't remember a lot of my teachers. I remember Mr. Gagliardi still. So no, I hope you guys you know, keep up the good work.
So I have a final question.
Yeah.
What are the chances that WrestleMania ends up at the DeBart gym one day? Is that something you guys have been talking about, doing it in DeBart?
So like I can't disclose where we may or may not be in active negotiations for future WrestleManias. I'm just saying, you know, we may have to talk about the pyrotechnic policy because we like to set off a lot of explosives at the show. But I think if we can make something work with the fire marshal, you know, 2027, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think it should be in the plan. And another quick clarification. Your mom told me a number of years ago that when you were first starting, that you were somebody that they would hit with chairs and like sometimes get involved in those situations. Is that accurate?
Yes. So not with chairs. So not fortunately, I don't, one of the things is I'm not an athlete and I'm not a trained performer. So I wouldn't know how to do any of that stuff safely. So they would never put me in that position. But I have been on TV. If you ever go back, there's a really unfortunate moment in late 2013 when I was just starting where I was asked to dance on camera for the purposes of being made fun of on TV. And it's one of the most sad displays of bad rhythm you've ever seen. So yes, I would occasionally get asked to be like an extra in certain scenes. Usually to their regret, and they kind of over time stopped asking me as much because I am not good on camera at all. I did manage to look directly into the camera, which is one of the cardinal sins, the first time they asked me. And somehow they didn't fire me on the spot. So, you know, that's their mistake, I'm pretty sure.
Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing you maybe get a cameo in Philadelphia during WrestleMania. I think maybe you don't know that it's happening, but it is.
Hey, if I run out there, they may have to make it part of the show before security demolishes me.
Thank you so much for talking to Hayden and Julia. We know your schedule is very busy, so you know, thanks for giving them the time to do this.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.
Wait. Okay, I just want to make sure we don't lose the recording. Press end. Yeah, let's do it.